Okay, guys, I am back out in the garage. House is still overrun with Christmas guests and people. I just finished editing the Tale of an Unfinished Murder Part 2, where I sat out here in the garage and we talked to Jack and Carol and we asked questions. And I just finished editing that. And I have to tell you guys, there's something weird going on here, okay? There's something weird that I get a gut feeling about that I want to talk about. As I was doing the session, I don't hear a lot of the back and forth, the answers from the spirits, but as I analyze it on the computer with a really good headset, volume crank, and I can replay it, I make things out, okay? And the story that I'm making out, there's a section in there where they were talking about Carol packing her things. And he looked back, she got caught. Jack was her brother-in-law. But I wonder, was there some kind of connection? Were they intimate? Were they now partners, lovers, a couple? I don't know that, but this is kind of what it seemed like, that Jack had betrayed her in some way. Also in that session, it said deep cover. And instantly, I was thinking, wow, what if Jack was undercover or working with the police? Maybe he was ratting out the things that were going on in this gang, because essentially these guys were a gang. Donald Kelly, Ian Rose, and James Lavin. They were suspected of multiple crimes in the 2 weeks leading up to the murders. And there were hundreds of house robberies, but there were some big things that made the news. They robbed the Case Populaire, 3 hooded guys, and shot the manager. They robbed a CNR rail truck and stole, I'm not sure, one article said $6,000. Another article said 6,000 quarters. Okay, so bad reporting, but either way, it was a big heist. And then there was a whole bunch of other robberies and gunplay and gun shooting going on downtown, and all kinds of disturbing the peace and prostitution. And, you know, this whole group of guys, including Jack and Carol, because they were running around doing these things. Okay, so I began to postulate that maybe Jack McWilliams was feeding the police information to lower, his sentence, because these guys were being charged with multiple things. And I don't know if Jack was charged with anything. I haven't seen that anywhere in the papers, but they were part of this gang. And we know that Carol was charged with prostitution and a few other things. Here's the funny part, guys. I'll get to the point. It's important. It's super important. I found an article looking up these coins, or the CNR railway, okay? And that led me to a piece of information that we can check off, that these newspapers, there's a full body shiver. Newspapers have given us information that we can confirm something I knew nothing about. Great. Jack and Carol broke into that session as well, and they were giving us information about being shot and whatnot. And it said at that time, a male voice came on and said, "How many guns are you going to get me?" And a female answered, 100. And right away I said, was this Carol promising Donald Kelly, who reportedly had mafia ties? Was she promising him 100 guns? Well, guess what, guys? When I was researching that CNR railway today, I found in an article, it said, I'll read it to you. Here's the article. 125 guns stolen 2 weeks before Jack and Carol were murdered from a gun shop in town. A few weeks later, a milk store was robbed of $35 by a lone hooded person. The following night, the manager of the Caisse Populaire St. Vincent de Paul was shot in the stomach when three persons wearing hoods attempted to rob the credit union office at the corner of Wild Street and Fifth Avenue. They fled before taking any money. 2 weeks ago, 125 rifles were taken when thieves broke into the George Taylor Hardware in the city. There it is. There's the guns. There's the connection. If that is not confirmation from the spirits, okay, this came out of nowhere onto a phone, told to me. I didn't know anything about this. Now we look it up months later and we find out that this actually happened back in 1969, before I was even born, you know, and I'm pretty sure Carol had something to do with that robbery. It's plain as day when they're telling you this is what happened, and then you find the article proving it. Now, the second thing that came out of that same article, that CNR article, they were talking about some of the things that had happened before the murders. Then it talked about the murders. Then it talked about finding the bodies. And instantly, again, my mind clicked. The discovery of the bodies was made by North Bay police officers. A police spokesman said officers were conducting a search of the Whitfield Station Road area at the time of the discovery. They would not reveal the reason for the search. To me, that is the strangest thing, because we're not talking about in town where police would be patrolling. We're talking 35 kilometers out along desolate highway, which I have to travel to get to my dad's. That's the town I grew up in. Out there is Redbridge, just past Whitfield Station. A little town of 1,500 people in Redbridge, and there's probably only a couple hundred, you know, in Whitfield Station. And it just says that they were out patrolling and found the two bodies floating in the river. And immediately, my mind says hogwash. That's BS. That is not the truth. They knew Jack was out there because Jack was working for them. Jack was giving them information, and they knew somehow. They either had, maybe they had a wire on them. Who knows? Maybe they had some kind of tracking device. I don't know. But they knew that that murder had occurred out there, and the police found the bodies. So to me, that is maybe confirmation that Jack had flipped on this group. And maybe that's what they were talking about when Carol said, you know, that she'd been betrayed. Let's ask the spirits. Let's find out. Hey guys, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm just going to take Gage for a walk here. And I thought, to be productive, I want to talk to you guys about our paranormal series that we are working on, because I had an interesting turn of events. I had two people contact me about the video that I posted earlier today. And I had two people who contacted me and wanted to give me information, but both of them said the exact same thing. You can't put any of this in your video. You can use some of the facts and things we're going to tell you, but they wanted to both remain anonymous. And basically what I can tell you is this, guys. I think the reason that Jack and Carol keep coming through, as unbelievable as this sounds, common knowledge seems to be, local knowledge, was that the three guys that were accused of murdering Jack and Carol were Donald Kelly, Ian Rose, and James Lavin. Okay? And Ian Rose and James Lavin both got off. And I'm not sure why or how, because pretty much it was, you know, determined that it would take more than one person to herd these two people out there, get them out of the car, shoot them, dispose of them, all of that stuff. Wouldn't be done by one person, especially when there was some debate as to whether Carol ran away, when it was thought that as soon as Jack stepped out of the car, McWilliams, they shot him. And Carol got away, and she was shot further away. Okay, this is what they think happened. And for one person to be able to do that would be pretty iffy. Because if I'm out here in the dark like tonight, right, and I run away from you, I'm going to hide out there somewhere. You're not going to find me. So anyway, it's pretty strong evidence that there was more than one of them. But only Donald Kelly was found guilty and sentenced to 2 life sentences. Okay? And I think that's why Jack and Carol keep coming through, because justice wasn't served. Both of these people who contacted me today were pretty adamant that they had sources who are now in their 80s, family members and other things, who swear that Donald Kelly, as crazy as he was not the murderer. He did not pull the trigger. And it seems that the consensus around town was that Ian Rose was the one who actually pulled the trigger. I don't have any proof of that, and this guy actually got off. But you know what? And when you live in a fairly small community, these are the things that people say happened, but there's no proof, okay? And he got off, so... But what I'm wondering is, you know, is there some... I mean, Donald Kelly was not an innocent guy, but was there some kind of miscarriage of justice that he was the only one charged with this? And I'm sure he had a huge hand in this. The other thing that came to life out of talking to these two, we'll say witnesses, even though they didn't witness anything, but they knew some of these people. They knew Ian Rose, okay? They knew James Lavin. They actually gave me James's nickname, Jimmy the Fox. Okay, one of the two that contacted me didn't even know his real name was James Lavin. They just knew him by his nickname. Okay? So, what I'm going to get at, we are going to do a spirit box session. We'll end up doing it in the garage. I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask. The other thing that came out of this information from these two people was, I threw out my idea, my hunch, you know, was Jack working with the police? And guess what? This person told me that that was absolutely the rumor going around back in the day. And they gave me names I can't even use on here because these families still exist in this community. Okay, mafia names. And yeah, I did a little bit of research. Y'all, they could easily be mafia people. What was being said was that Jack and Carol were both snitches. And that's why they were killed. But from what I could get from our last session, it seemed to me more like Jack was the snitch. Carol was feeling betrayed because of that. It said her spirit is still angry. You know, we're going to follow that line of questioning. I also want to delve into the question of, were Jack and Carol in a relationship other than brother and sister-in-law? And we did get that message before, like I showed you guys, that said, you know, best lovers ever, Jack and Carol. So this is just some of where I'm going with this. I mean, there are things that I can't say on camera, and none of it is proven. I don't have proof for any of this. But when two separate people tell me the same story, it seems like everybody around here already has it figured out. You know, it blows my mind that I don't know anything about these cases, these people, you know, until Grant does his little session there. And then we get these bits of information that come through and stuff that is being confirmed in newspaper articles that I would have no clue of. You know, were they actually found guilty of the hardware store robbery with the guns? I couldn't find anything that said that Carol or Jack or Don Kelly or Ian Rose or any of these guys, James Lavin, were charged with that. They were charged with the case populaire, attempted murder. There's just so much more I need to educate myself on with this case. And the more I do, the more questions I'll have. You know, Grant said something to me today that I disagree with 100%. And I told him, I said, I have a strong feeling about some of this stuff. Okay, the one that really bothered me the most was the 100 guns. The male voice that came on, then the female voice, I was sure that that had to do with Jack and Carol's case, okay? And then it's not coincidence that we see that the hardware store was robbed and 125 guns were stolen 2 weeks before they were murdered, okay? So I have to go with the gut feeling when I get it, and I really have a strong gut feeling that Jack was working with the police. And I think what happened, I mean, this is just supposition on my part, but I mean, I'm telling you guys, how did the police go out there and find their bodies floating in the river that night? There is no way. If you guys have seen the country that I show you guys up here, it is vast, it is empty, and North Bay police are not going to be 35 kilometers out on a highway and then hanging, down an old dirt road where nobody lives to find these bodies. Unless somebody called it in and said, there's bodies floating in the river, but it doesn't say that. Nowhere does it say that they were tipped off. It says they were out there doing a routine search. Well, I'm proposing what happened, guys, is that he was out there, Jack, that is, and Carol, and they knew that something was going on out there that night. You know, maybe Jack set up a meeting. Maybe it was in regards to these guns. Maybe it was in regards to drugs or talking about splitting up that loot from the CNR robbery. But I think the police knew that they were there. And I think when Carol and Jack got murdered, no one was expecting that. And the police just shut their mouths and said, hey, look, this guy was our snitch and we couldn't protect him. They offed him, they murdered him right there. There wasn't anything we could do about it, and nobody knows that he was working with us. So they thought. We're not even going to mention this. You know, it's not going to be on file. Because we didn't do our jobs, you know? We did not protect this guy. And that's just my hunch. I want to get to the bottom of that. I'm going to ask them, the spirits, I'm going to drill them about that. You know, I feel that that is what happened. One of my informants told me that Jack McWilliams' father, Frank, swore to his dying day that Ian Rose pulled the trigger. And he would tell that to anyone and everyone who would listen. So maybe we can even get Frank to come through on the spirit box and tell us his side of it or what he thinks happened. So anyway, as I was saying, Grant was telling me that I'm no better than these charlatan at the local fair when I go with a hunch, right? Because I don't have proof. And he says, well, I don't hear what you're hearing. I don't hear what he hears on his videos either, right? But sometimes you just have to say, I know what they're saying. I know what they're trying to say. Sometimes it's just a garbled, mumbly in the background, and I know, in my gut, I know what they're trying to say. I just know. I get that feeling. And I listen to the cadence. I listen to the sentence over and over and over. Like, guys, it takes me 9-10 hours of listening when we do a 10-minute session sometimes, you know? Like, there's that much information coming through. And I'm not just willy-nilly throwing up names or words that I'm hearing, sentences. I honestly believe this is what I'm hearing. And you don't have to hear what I'm hearing. In fact, I think I was wrong on that last video where it said, deep cut her. Okay, I was thinking emotionally because it said she was angry. No, I think it said deep cover twice. The second time said deep cover again. I just didn't catch it, right? And that can happen. And if you guys hear something that I don't, you know, post a comment because Grant caught another one. I thought it said repent, but it said with Grant. And when I listened to it again, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it's saying. It said repeat, and then after it said repent right away. And I thought, well, that doesn't really make sense. Repeat with Grant is what it was saying. Can I get Grant out here and do another session on this? I still think we should go back to the Whitfield station The bridge we were on the day we did our live on the spot, you know, a bridge over the river that we thought could have been the location of where those two were murdered. Turns out that's not it, because if you go through the old clippings, they talk about a wooden bridge and the police taking bullets, or a bullet, out of the bridge. Lead. Okay, let's be clear. It said lead. It didn't say a bullet. You know, but could that have happened? We know they were both shot in the head. Did they make them kneel on the ground and then, you know, a wooden railing would be at head height? Did one of the bullets go right through and stick in the railing? Could be. All right, guys, here we are back out in the garage, and I am ready to continue on with our spirit box portion of our investigation on the murders of Jack and Carol. So let's get into this. I've got about a dozen questions here. Some things we can look up and confirm, and then other things that I just want answers from our last session, questions that came out of the last session. And I will try various settings throughout where we'll go to the echo or the reverb or combination of, okay? In the last session, we got the response twice. It said deep cover. Who was in deep cover? Carol, did Jack betray you? And if so, how? Was Jack working undercover for the police? Carol, were you and Jack more than just brother and sister-in-law? Were you intimate? Betrayer. Carol, were you the female voice that I heard promising 100 guns? Did you promise Donald Kelly 100 guns? Carol, did you rob the George Taylor Hardware and steal 125 guns for Donald Kelly? Was that your doing? Who was Jerry Roy? Did Jerry Roy conspire to kill you and Jack? What was Ian Rose's nickname? Say his nickname. So for the record, James Lavin's nickname was Jimmy the Fox. I don't know if the box said that or not. And Ian Rose's nickname was Rosie. So that's what everybody called those two guys, Jimmy the Fox and Rosie. Frank McWilliams, Jack's dad, swore to his dying day that Ian Rose was the one who pulled the trigger and executed Carol and Jack. Is that true? Are you here? Can you say your name, Mr. McWilliams? I heard you say I'm here. Now that you're on the other side, Frank, can you confirm for us? Did Ian pull the trigger? Was he the executioner? I heard yes. I heard he pulled. This just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, guys. All three of those responses made sense to me right here now live. I'll listen to them again on the computer and make sure that that is actually what I heard. I guess that's it for questions for now, guys, because it's going to take me hours to analyze those answers right there. And this video is getting kind of long. So I will try to confirm. There's a few things in there that maybe we can confirm through newspaper clippings. I don't know, guys. I'm looking for anything that we can confirm that's coming out of this box, which would have no clue about what we're talking about, right? This thing cannot research a murder case from 1969. And I've heard numerous names that we talked about today. Yes, some of you guys, the skeptics, are going to say, but you said Ian's name, Gary. Then it said Ian. You said Jack's name. Then it said Jack. That could be the case, but they're also giving us other information when they say those names. I don't believe it's just a case of this thing regurgitating what I'm saying. I think it's those guys around us acknowledging and coming through and giving us information. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. We are not done with this case yet.